Good evening. The coming Christmas holiday season brings to us an important lesson, many important lessons. And it would be well for us to start with an understanding of the nature of these holiday seasons. And then we can go on to this particular one. In ancient days, when truth was taught only to those on the higher levels of society, those who had some measure of education, all teaching was symbolized. And the reason was to keep these teachings from the masses, so that they would not be misunderstood and misapplied. You will remember that the Master cautioned against casting your pearls before swine, lest they be trampled upon, and spoke of milk for the babes and meat for the adults. Truth can be misunderstood, and that can be misapplied. And it was thought in those days that to keep truth from the ignorant masses, the illiterate masses, would prevent any wrong use of truth. You might wonder whether or not truth can be misapplied or used destructively. And that, of course, would depend upon the truth about what? What truth are you thinking of? For instance, there is a field of learning that in this age is completely untapped. That is the realm of mind. No one within the past several hundred years, and no one at the present time, has even undertaken a study of the subject of mind. That which passes for such study under the heading of psychology and psychiatry is not even to be classified as correct teaching of any nature. In fact, not even to be classified as teachings of mind, because they are more than 100% in error on any and every phase that they have yet touched. Therefore, I can say to you positively that the subject of mind is completely untapped. Yet, thousands of years ago, it was known in its fullness. The entire knowledge of mind and its operations existed. The subject of mind was abused, misused. And so there sprung up, separate and apart from the schools of wisdom, other schools which were called black brotherhoods. These actually were original students of the wisdom schools who used their knowledge for erroneous purposes, sometimes evil purposes, sometimes merely personal and selfish purposes, but in any event, they used their knowledge erroneously. Out of that, in all of the what we call primitive races, there has sprung up religious practices in which there was both the good practice and the evil practice, such as existed here in the islands in the days of the good kahuna and the bad kahuna. The good kahuna who blessed, and the bad kahuna who used his powers for evil. This same form of practice exists in one sect of people on the mainland, even to this day. It also survives in Australia and in Central America and in some parts of South America, where the subject of mind has been divided into two parts. Those who are men of innate integrity use these powers for good, even for healing works, whereas those who have learned about these principles of mind and not being of a sufficient degree of integrity have perverted the activities of mind and used them for purposes of cursing and for other purposes of selfish interests. Now, this experience continued when Mrs. Eddy began using the power of mind to heal. She soon discovered that some of her students who lacked the proper degree of integrity began to use their understanding of these principles of mind for purposes of malpractice, showing that wherever a truth comes to light, if it falls into the wrong hands, it can be perverted. In the same way, we have today teachings just being put on the market which claim to teach you how to use the mind for purposes of good and for purposes of evil, how to use them to influence people so that you can get whatever you want. Here again, you have the same idea of the perversion of truth. It is for this reason, then, that we have the symbolical teaching of the birth of the Christ. And in this teaching, it is revealed that the Christ is born as a babe, and that instantly enemies are roused up against the Christ, enemies who would destroy it. And so the babe is taken down to Egypt and hid, where those who would destroy it cannot find it. The babe is not returned until it is sufficiently advanced to be able to survive on its own, or perhaps outlive its enemies. Whenever a truth is announced to the world, enemies rise up to destroy it. The Master revealed all of this when he taught that they persecuted me before they persecute you. And he might have gone on and pointed to the others who were persecuted before he came. And then revealed that wherever truth raises its head, there will be an enemy to destroy it. And the enemy will always be of its own household. When you put all of this together and begin to look through the symbology, you will find that truth is being revealed within your individual consciousness. You, rather your mind, is the manger in which the Christ is born. The enemies that would destroy it, the Herods, the Caesars that would destroy it, are qualities of your own being, qualities of your own human nature, characteristics of your own racial, religious, nationalistic traits that have become embedded and embodied within your mind, so that within your own mind is the enemy of the Christ. Try to remember that all truth teaching has to do with individual you and me. There is no such thing taught as truth in general, or truth at large. All truth is the truth about you, within you. Therefore, all truth is individual and must be applied as if it were being addressed to you as an individual, or to me, to whomever the student may be. Therefore, when it is revealed that at a certain point in your development the Christ is born, it means the Christ is born in you. When it is revealed that an enemy will rise up, an enemy of that Christ, remember that the enemy that will rise up is a quality or an activity of your own human being, something within yourself. When it is taught that the Christ must be taken down to Egypt to be hid, remember that this means that truth must be practiced within you secretly, sacredly, silently, until it has had time to come to fruition, until it has had time to come to the fullness of strength within you. Now, the greatest enemy of truth that exists within any individual is personal sense. That false sense of I, which wants you to cater to you, or to use truth for personal or selfish motives. There is your greatest enemy. Going back again to the ancients, this is symbolized in the white brotherhood and the black brotherhood. The white brotherhood are those of such integrity that every bit of truth known to them is used for the welfare of the world, of mankind. No one who constitutes the white brotherhood would ever think of using truth for their own selfish purpose, for gain, for profit, for fame. You can watch that as you study the life of the Master and see how completely and how frequently he acknowledged, I can of my own self do nothing. It is the Father within me that doeth the work, always disclaiming personal credit, personal honor, personal glory. And certainly there is no sign of personal profit in his entire ministry. His life is a dedication to the people of his household, to the people of his nation, of his race, of his religion, of all those receptive to the message. In the end, he not only gave his life, but taught that you do not find your immortal life until you have lost your life. Here, of course, he was not referring to any need for our being crucified on a cross, but losing our lives in the sense of not using truth for personal gain, for personal profit, for personal fame, but giving up any sense of personal adulation, personal gain, in living one's life for the world. Now, the black brotherhood are those who, learning about the principles of truth, are not equal to living their lives unselfishly in dedication to the people of their world, but who see the opportunity of using this for their personal fame or personal name or personal gain. So today, we have these teachings which are offered to the world. In one place it's offered for $2 a month, in another place it's offered the whole truth for $3.50, just for the price of a book, of how you may use the principles of good for destructive purposes and for selfish purposes. And so again we have in human consciousness the enemy of truth, that which would destroy truth. Now, the history of the world shows that throughout all time, those who have used truth unwisely, selfishly, greedily, and evilly have themselves come to a bad end, because the works they do react upon themselves. This also in accord with a principle. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. What you do to others is done unto you. If you sow to the flesh, you reap corruption. If you sow to the Spirit, you reap life everlasting. And therefore, those who utilize the principles of truth for selfish or evil purposes are merely laying up a whole storehouse full of evil for themselves. And the law never fails. It always reacts upon the one who uses it, just as it also reacts for good to those that use it for good. In other words, those who sow to the Spirit do reap life everlasting, and the bread that you cast upon the waters is the bread that returns to you. And if the bread that you have cast upon the waters is the bread of truth, of life, of love, that is the bread that comes back to bless your own experience. Whereas if you have sent forth corrupt bread, the bread of personalization, selfishness, greed, evil, that is the poison bread that returns to one. So we find in the symbology of truth the principles underlying truth. As we come to this particular holiday season, let us remember, first of all, that we have been entrusted with a pearl of wisdom. In whatever degree we have received gems of truth, whether we have received them in religious teaching, spiritual teaching, philosophical teaching, brotherhood teaching, whatever way they have come to us, we have been entrusted with pearls of wisdom, and because there is always an enemy ready to destroy it, we first of all learn to keep the gems of wisdom secret, sacred within ourselves until such time as they have come alive in us to such a demonstrable extent that the world can bear witness to these in our experience without our having to talk about it or boast about it or brag about it. Then, when individuals present themselves to us seeking whatever grain of truth we have, we can impart it to them. In our work, we have learned that it is no part of our function to go out into the world to proselyte, to go out into the world to advertise, to go out into the world to reform it or save it, that our function is to abide within ourselves, living the truths that are revealed to us, and then sharing them with those who seek us out. Emerson once said, "What you are shrieks so loudly I cannot hear what you say." And you will find that it is true that what you are, what you know, what you embody in your consciousness is so evident that you never have to tell it to anyone. They see it in you, they feel it in you, they are drawn to you, and eventually they will come to you. And then is the time to share with them whatever truth has come to you in demonstrable degrees. Never try to teach truth that you have not yourself demonstrated, at least in some measure. This is being asked for bread and giving a stone. Never attempt to give out that which you yourself haven't assimilated and to some degree can prove. You must be able to prove in some measure the truth you voice. And it is wisdom to keep it locked up inside of you and practice it, live it, practice it, live it, practice it, until you have it to such an extent that it is demonstrable, and then you can share it with those who come to you. In our work, we have received a principle of truth not yet known to the world, and therefore it is not possible to give it to the world because there isn't a receptivity to it, a preparedness for it. But this does not mean that we cannot live it and prove it in our individual experience and then prove it for those who are led to us for it, and thereby ultimately make it available to the world. Never forget that the truth the Master had, Christ Jesus, would have saved the world had the world been able to receive it. Now remember this is very important to you. He said, O Jerusalem, I would gather you under my arms, but ye would not. In other words, you could not receive what I had to offer. Gladly would he have given to the hierarchy of the Hebrew church all of the wisdom that he had, but they couldn't receive it. They couldn't accept it. Gladly, as he walked up and down the Holy Land, would he have taken every Jew under his arm, and I'm sure all of the Romans too, if they could have heard him. But they would not. And so it is that the truth that you have, the world would never accept. And it would receive the same fate today that it received 2,000 years ago, if again it were attempted to publish it to the world. On the other hand, by publishing it as we are doing, without fanfare, without advertising, without promotion, it stands not only in your individual consciousness and mine, it stands on the library shelves of every public library in the United States and Canada and England and soon in Germany and France and South Africa, North Africa, Australia, New Zealand. It stands there and day by day is being accepted by those individuals who are led to those shelves, just as today these writings are in the libraries of the seminaries throughout the world. And there too are being found by those prepared to find them. It is for this reason, then, that we have a function. First of all, to acknowledge our Christmas, to acknowledge the birth of the Christ in our consciousness, and then to hide it there. Take our trip to Egypt, hide our Christ, and let it grow, let it develop itself within our consciousness, and then, as it finds its full strength demonstrably, then slowly, gradually, gently, give it to those who seek you. Now, you will succeed only in proportion as you understand and eventually demonstrate the major principle of our work. You will remember, because it has been brought out to you many times, that the human world exists by reason of power. In other words, the man with a bow and arrow is overcome by the man who has a musket. And the army with a musket is overcome by the one who has a rifle. And the one with a rifle is overcome by the one that has the machine gun. And the machine gun is overcome by the army that has the cannon. And so on and on and on. One power always overcoming another power until we come to the atomic bomb, and now we don't know what to do with it, because what power is that will overcome it? So in every walk of life, everything depends on power. There is the material power, which has run its race from the bow and arrow to the atomic bomb. There are mental powers which have been utilized both for good and for evil. And then there has been the attempt, which failed, to utilize God power. Now, ever since the days of the pagans, attempts have been made to find and utilize a God power. That was the origin of the pagan religions, turning first to a god and then to many gods, to find a God power to do what physical powers and mental powers didn't accomplish. And then came the Hebrew race with its one God. And it failed. It failed because while it had one God, it went to that God for the same powers that the pagans had gone to their pagan gods. And of course there's no record anywhere in the Hebrew history of their God power accomplishing for them what their prayers demanded. Ah, yes, there were individual Hebrew leaders like Moses, Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah, Jesus, John, Paul. There were these individual leaders who attained mystical wisdom and knew how to pray. And they were able to bring harmony, safety, peace into the lives of their followers. But remember, they were not praying as the other Hebrews prayed, because their prayers were fruitful, whereas all the rest of the Hebrew peoples were failures. In other words, the things that the Hebrews throughout the centuries sought of their God, they never received, except in those few intervals when they had leaders of mystical wisdom. No need to point out to you that the Christians have failed equally, for their prayers have been of as little avail as the old Hebrew prayers. In all of the centuries of Christian prayers, there has been no end to wars on earth, or plagues, or storms, or anything else that the Christians have prayed to have removed from their experience, including disease. Yet, there have been some Christian mystics whose prayers have attained divine harmony. But only those few, just as in the case of the Hebrew mystics. For the rest, I don't have to call your attention to the 3 wars in which we have so diligently prayed for peace and never once seen it come except when the enemy had no more ammunition. Or of the centuries of praying for health. And except as materia medica has advanced in knowledge, the prayers of themselves have proven of no avail. Whatever advance has come in health has come not because of effective prayers, but because of a greater efficiency in materia medica. And the only exception to that rule is the metaphysicians, who certainly do not pray as the Christians do, or as the Hebrews do, or as the Muslims do, or as the Hindus do, but who have attained at least some higher measure of the nature of prayer. Prayers that seek a God power must fail. The very nature of God makes that positive. The nature of God is such that God cannot do one day what God isn't doing every day. For God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The nature of God is such that God could never do for one person what God isn't doing for all persons. For God can be no respecter of persons and be God. The very nature of God is such that God cannot be influenced by man. What kind of an omnipotence would it be if man, with his picayune knowledge, could set himself up to advise God, tell God, influence God? The nature of God is such that God cannot be moved to change its laws, to make exceptions. The nature of God is such that his rain falls upon the just and the unjust. That we are compelled to say to the woman taken in adultery, neither do I condemn thee. We are compelled to say to the thief on the cross, I will take thee into paradise with me this night. Not after purgatory, not after punishment, not after frying in hell. This night, forgive 70 times 7. It must be that God must forgive 70,000 times 7. If man in his frailty is expected to forgive 70 times 7. So you see that trying to invoke God power, which the pagans did, which the Hebrews did, which the Christians did, must forever result in failure. In much the same way that the professors before Marconi's day failed because they tried to find a power with which to overcome non-existing powers in the air. And they failed. And only when Marconi recognized the secret of non-power did he succeed. So in our work, we have been given by revelation the truth, this particular truth, which concerns the nature of the evils of this world and how to nullify them. These principles are made clear in the Infinite Way writings, and those who would practice them will very quickly discover that the way to harmony, whether in health, whether in business, whether in profession or art, whether in human relationships of one nature or another, the way to harmony is not invoking a God power, because this God power already is omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience. It is already active where you are. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground, because the presence of God is already there. If you make your bed in hell, you need not fear. If you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you need not fear, for the very presence of God, which you would invoke, you can't invoke, because it is already where I am. It is already where you are. Omnipresence is your assurance of that. Omnipotence and omniscience is the assurance that that which you are seeking, that which you are trying to contact, that which you are believing even that you can gain by sacrifice, is already where you are. Omnipresence within your very being, within your own consciousness. The Christ is already born within you and is awaiting your recognition. The powers of this world, the negative powers of sin, of disease, of lack, of unhappiness, lack of peace, these aren't powers. These only operate as powers as long as you individually and the world collectively can be made to fight them, can be made to argue against them, can be made to seek a power to destroy them. Once you have given up this desire for a power, you have come into an awareness of the revelation which has been given to us in this message of the Infinite Way. And you will learn the ancient secret of resist not evil. You will know why he taught resist not evil. You will know why he rebuked his disciples when they came to him and said, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name. And he rebuked them because it wasn't true. It wasn't true then, and it isn't true now, that any evil is subject to anyone. by the name or the power of God. Oh no. The secret is, resist not evil, for it is not a power. To the impotent, to the crippled man, he did not say that the power of God will restore you, but rather, what did hinder you? And herein is a revelation of the principle. When you begin to understand what this principle is that has been given to us in this message, you will know why it cannot spread around the world by advertising or proselyting, and then you will understand why it has already spread through 5 continents without advertising, without promotion, without any human effort. In other words, it has spread because of the power within itself. And it is doing the work that we as human agents could never do. First, accept this within yourself, that you have been given a principle of life. And this time, a principle of life which cannot be used for selfish purposes, cannot be used to gain fame or fortune. It cannot be used for any personal means, because this truth is neither on the level of matter or mind, and therefore is beyond the pairs of opposites. Anything of a material nature or mental nature can be used for either good or for evil. You can take a drug and you can cure with it, and you can take it and kill with it. You can take electricity and run all of our great wonderful gadgets, and you can kill with it. You can take good food and build a healthy body with it, or destroy one. Anything of a material or mental nature can be used for good or for evil. It is only when you touch the realm of non-power that you come to a realm in which you cannot use it either for good or for evil, but which reveals itself as good. You are not using it. It is enforcing itself. When the Master revealed, I can of my own self do nothing, he revealed the principle that is our principle of treatment. If we were to give anyone a treatment, it would be a mental activity. And that mental activity, as has been proven, can be used for good or for evil. But when we help our students and our patients, we do not give them treatments. We sit in the silence, in the assurance of the non-power of that which is appearing to afflict them. Therefore, no treatment is necessary, no mental application, no mental projection of thought, for we are simply sitting and beholding the non-power. We are not utilizing one power over another. We are not even utilizing a God power. We are not utilizing power. We are recognizing non-power. The non-power of that which is called the negative forces and influences of this world. This principle of the infinite way is radical. There is no religious teaching on the face of the globe today that is using or is in knowledge of this particular principle. It is the only one, and therefore it must all alone prove its efficacy or failure. There's no one can help us. There's no one to whom we can turn for help, because it is completely unknown in this world. And so far as I know from my reading, it has not been utilized in 2,000 years. Whatever measure of it was taught then, we don't know. There are only vague hints of it in the four Gospels. What may turn up in other manuscripts, we still do not know. This that constitutes the infinite way did not come to me through books, through learning, through study, for it is not to be found anywhere in the literature of the world. It has come to me through revelation and been proved in 30 years of demonstration. Now, our only benefit to this world can be in proportion as we can prove these principles in our individual lives first, then in the harmonies that take place within our families, then in the degree of harmony, health, peace that we can bring to those who are led to us, and thereby eventually circle the globe. There is no call for any student to go beyond his depth. If in your individual experience you are not able to understand and demonstrate this principle sufficiently to bring about the fulfillment of harmony in your own life, you have the right and you have the privilege to turn to other students for help, and thereby attain your own harmony, and then be free to carry on your studies and practice until you too are able to sit back when asked for help and not give a treatment, but refrain from treatments because of your understanding of the nature of that which is appearing as the evil influences, as the sins or the diseases or the lacks or limitations of those who come to you. Those of us who have been with this work a good many years are already working on broader aspects of this work applied to large world problems. And we are meeting with a measure of success. And this work will continue until, by its own demonstration, it shows itself forth to the world. Meanwhile, our responsibility, first of all, is, as was the case with Joseph and Mary, take your Christ into Egypt and hide it within yourself. Continue to study and to practice and to live with these principles until they come forth and show themselves forth in your life to such an extent that others come to you and say, what have you? What is it? Will you share it? And then begin to feed them milk and gradually lead them up to the meat of the Word. In the beginning of your study and practice, you will believe that this is very, very simple. It appears much more simple than it is. And you will have many disappointments because it seems so simple and logical as you read it that you wonder why you can't immediately demonstrate it. The answer is this. You can't demonstrate it because it's true. You can only demonstrate it in proportion as you attain the consciousness of it. It is, for instance, like mathematics. I'm sure mathematics is wholly true. But it doesn't seem to do me much good when it comes to figuring out my checkbook, because I don't seem to have a thorough enough grasp on it. In other words, the mere fact that arithmetic is true doesn't make it demonstrable for me. There has to be something further than the truth of mathematics. There has to be my awareness of the truth of mathematics. Then it will work. So it is with this principle. Just because this principle is the principle of life doesn't mean that you can immediately apply it wholly successfully. It takes time to develop the consciousness. There again, we have the 2 years in Egypt. Or St. Paul. Do you remember that Saul of Tarsus, after his many years of religious study, has this tremendous experience, this blinding light, in which he realizes the Christ. You would imagine that about the next day he would start out in the world reforming it, healing it, and doing great works. Oh no. He went down to Arabia for 9 years. And he remained there all alone, pondering that which had been revealed to him, thinking of it, living it, practicing it. And only after 9 years did he start out on his work. In the same way, my revelation was given to me late in 1928, but it was 16 years later before I went out to teach. And I spent those 16 years in proving in daily experience that these principles were true. And only after 16 years did I attempt to teach and reveal to others how it is done, because this work is just like any art or science. The mere knowledge is not sufficient. There must be an actual consciousness behind the knowledge. And that is where it takes a little time and patience. And that is why we often have to resort to help from our fellow students until we reach that stage when we can walk on the water alone. It may be that these 3 talks that we have had this week may bring some questions to your thought, and if so, and you would like to write them out and put them on this table, I may be able to answer them for you tomorrow morning. As you know, we are going to be here at 11 o'clock, and if you have any questions that should be answered and that I can answer, just write them out and have them on this table at 11 o'clock or before 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. And until then, aloha